Hello, welcome to tutorial 5 for INDD 5960 Auburn University Industrial Design. This is our tutorial on, this is as much a reference as anything else. This video is geared to run you through quite a few sections, about 10 different sections that will allow you to start bringing your own assets into the Unreal Engine. So we won't be building a specific game. We will just be running through the different methods that you need to understand to be able to bring in any of your own artwork into the engine to be able to build your game. So we're going to start all of this with textures. What you have here is just two quick textures I put together to demonstrate the process. And this is in Photoshop. Nothing fancy here. It's just a grid texture that is 128 by 128. Since all our products from this tutorial, from this class, are geared for mobile, my textures are appropriately sized. And then over here we have a tiling stone path texture that I put together. And for a tutorial on tiling, you can just type that into Google and find a million of them. I used the offset filter, painted out the center of the duplicated offset layer, and then offset it again a second time. Nothing fancy. So from this point, how do we get it into Unreal? Well, we're going to save them as targets. So save as, and target is a uncompressed format that allows our texture to not get squished yet. The engine is going to do that for us when we import it into a standard format used for video games called a DDS, a direct draw surface. And that is a type of texture used by DirectX that you just don't need to worry about. All we care about is targets for right now. So we will call this say this is our grid sample for INDD 5960. We want 24 bits per pixel. That means we're getting a red, blue, and green channel, and we are omitting the alpha channel. This would include an alpha channel, but neither of these require it. We're not using it, and that's another tutorial another time. So 24 bits is what we're after. You know what? I just saved the pattern over the grid. So let's fix that real quick. Pattern simple. That's what we want. Pattern simple. Save. 24 bits. There we go. All right. Now let's file, save as. Grid simple. Save. Yup. Want to replace it? 24 bits. All right, that's great. So we're done with Photoshop. We have two textures that we need to, that we're going to bring into the engine. Oh, it's also worth noting, yes, these are square. To bring textures into the engine, they absolutely must be a power of 2 size. So you may bring in a texture that is 256 by 128 or 64 by 1024 or you know, any size you wish, so long as they are a power of 2. So 128, 256, 512, 1024. And then when you're looking at like high-res face textures and such, you're looking at 2048. Massive, you know, multi-kilometer terrain textures of 4096. But since we are mobile, most of our textures will be in the 32, 64, 128 range. And again, these can be 128 by 256 or 128 by 1024. So just must be power of 2. All right, now we are in the engine. And I've got the generic browser pulled up here. I do that every time. Content browser, excuse me. And what we wish to do is start a package of our own for our game. So down here in the bottom left, click New. All right, let's name it. So we'll call it My Project. In this case, I would like you guys to call it your name. It would be preferable to My Project. INDD 5960. So this can be whatever you wish. So like I said, in this case, we'll do this. There we go. We're not worried about grouping yet. And then we need the name of the asset that we're going to begin our package with. None of these packages can exist without something being put in it initially. So the first time a package is created, a lot of times you'll create a temporary asset that you'll delete later when you get what you want in that package. In this case, we'll throw a material in there, and right here we need to know what the material name, what the name of this material is that it's going to create. So we'll just say this is, for now, it's delete me, because I'm not interested in this particular material. All right, delete me. Let's make the package. So this is the material delete me. They went ahead and automatically opened it for me. I'm going to close that because I don't really care about it right now. So right there, you'll see the new package, T. Lindsay, INDD 5960. You'll be able to start dragging in your own assets right into this package. Before we move forward, let's talk about this asterisk here. That asterisk on any of these packages means that the package is dirty, meaning that it has changed and that change has not been saved. So anytime you see an asterisk next to a map or next to a file, it means that the file's changed and the changes have not been saved. So let's go ahead and save this guy. Save. This is the point at which we will choose where it lives. So you'll see I have my INDD 5960 folder here, and then packages. And then here's the sample package that you guys have been working with. But in this case, we don't want to save over that, do we? We want to save our own game package out. T. Lindsay, INDD 5960.UDK. So it's going to live right there next to the package we've been using for this class. All right, it's saved out and ready to go. You see right there, the two living happily side by side. All right, those textures. We need those textures in here. Let's open up a file browser. Again, what we are after are the targets. So we've got a simple pattern here and a grid that we want to bring into the game. So from here, you literally can just drag them right in. And it's going to ask you, what package? Well, since I have my package highlighted, and I drug it into this window that's featuring all the stuff in my package, it already knows, T. Lindsay, INDD 5960. Grouping, now this matters. I want these to go underneath a subdirectory called textures. And it's grabbing the name right off of the texture. I like the name, we're good to go. And then as far as the options down here are concerned, we are not going to worry about them quite yet. There's these options are a way for you to go ahead and automatically start off a material, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do it the old-fashioned way. And it's also a way to go ahead and drop textures into specific groups that allow the game to control the LOD, the resolution of the LOD textures when you've figured out what the specs for the machine are. Like as a group, you could say, well, these are world textures and their maximum resolution is 512 or 1024, whatever, what have you. In this case, texture group mobile flattened makes sense for us. That's the only thing we really care about. And we definitely want to make sure we stay blend opaque for now. Again, since we're mobile, we're not going to be using much in the way of transparency. Not yet. All right, so our first texture's in there. Same thing for this guy. You can also use Binox here to select the subgroup if it already exists. All right. And since we don't care about this material, we'll go ahead and delete it. Our package is dirty, so we're going to save that. All right. Now we have two textures, but we don't slap textures straight onto surfaces in the Unreal Engine. We have to create a material, and what we'll do is take our box from this package, give us a surface to stand on. We'll create a material and put that path on it. So let's add our box, drag it in. Same old story here. Set it to 0, 0, 0, and change the scale. Now, we've talked a little bit in class about the BSP brushes. You could also use BSP to give us something to stand on. And ultimately, that is the preferred method. But since I don't want to, we don't have the time to really go through all of the how BSP works and all the brushes. It's up to you to kind of dive into on your own. So override light map resolution. It's a pretty big surface, so we'll go ahead and give it a big fat light map. All right, so we now have our block, and what we want to do is put that stone path on it. And we already know that I can't just add a stone path straight to this surface. Will not work. So we need a material, new material. I got to that just by, like anything else in Unreal, you right-click in the field, that area that shows you what's inside the package. Choose new material. All right, name of the material is going to be pattern sample INDD 5960. This is a material, it's not a texture, so matte. And I like to keep my materials and my textures separate because most of the time I don't even look at the textures group. So we'll go ahead and make a materials group. This is the material that I want to hook up for our ground. Now this may seem a little confusing, but Unreal effectively has two methods for handling materials right now, and that's because you can build PC products and Xbox products which use the material editor, but then you can also use, down here in the options, you can build a material using the mobile options. When you use the previewer, right up here to the right, the standard Unreal previewer, you will see materials that are hooked up here, or shaders that are basically constructed up here. But you will not see a material that is using these options. As opposed to the mobile previewer, this guy, you'll see your material that's been set up down here, and you will not necessarily see the shader that's been constructed up here. It might be a little hazy right this second, but it'll make more sense in a moment. So we want this texture, so we're going to select it, just drag it right in here. It gives us a node. For right now, since this isn't a shader class, all we care about is hooking this up to diffuse. And then we'll go ahead and, as a shortcut, hook the red channel up to specular, just to give us some specularity. Now this is going to show up in our mobile, in our standard previewer, but not necessarily the mobile. So what we want to do down here is say auto flatten mobile. So this is going to take the network from up here, flatten it down to a texture, and then use that as the diffuse texture for this surface. What you could also do is, instead of checking that, you could just add this material directly by plugging it in right here. So I can see cases where you want to do either. For right now, we'll just use auto flatten mobile, and we will not worry about the rest of these features quite yet. So to save our changes to this material, go ahead and hit the green checkbox at the top left here. All right, close it up. So now underneath our little materials folder, we have our material. Select that. Right, select our box down here. And then we are going to go to materials. And we're going to assign from content browser. All right. The texture is huge. That's just because the UVs on this box are stretched all the way to the corners. Now we can change how frequently this texture is drawn on this surface through the material we just made. So we'll open up the material, and we will use what we're trying to do is change the coordinates that this texture is mapped to, so you can see new texture coordinate. All right, we'll plug that into the UVs here. You can change the tiling right here. So, hit the check mark to see how that looks. All right, that's probably about the scale we want. All right, so we're in good shape as far as adding this material. Now, of course, we're not going to see anything without lights. We'll go ahead and add a light. All right, it's working for me. And we will add a player start. And we'll go ahead and change our light quality. And then build all. Build our paths and our lights. All right, so we get our standard errors, no big deal. All we want to do is see the ground here. All right, there we go. We now have a texture on a surface. That's, while by no means something we would want to ship out to people to be to be proud of, it's a good start. Okay, so simple shapes and textures alone are not going to build a game. So I've got 3D Studio here, and I've already put together just a silly, simple scene. Has a big fat door and door frame in it. All right. The reason we're in here is because regardless of whether you're using Maya or 3D Studio or something else, there's a couple of settings you want to make sure you have covered on your ASE export so that you can actually get meshes into the engine that you can use in your game. And so for right now, we're going to stick with a simple door frame. Nothing fancy. Doesn't get any chunkier or simpler. What we need to do, and this is for Maya or for anything with the ASE options, you'll hit Export Selected. Of course, if you're using Maya, you use Axe Mesh. And then from here, where do we want to export this? We'll just leave it in the default export directory. You're going to choose ASE, and this is the door frame, 5960 here. Hit save. Yep, we're going to replace it. And the main thing you need to make sure of here is you need your geometry, you need your materials, you need your normals, so we know which way the faces are facing. You need your UVs, your map coordinates. You need your vertex colors, because depending on the game you're working on or the platform you're working on, you may well use vertices to color or to light the world instead of textures. And then cameras, lights, helpers, we don't really need anything like that. Main thing we're after are normals, coordinates, vertex colors, shapes, materials. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. Now this mesh, like most, is just centered here at 0, 0, 0. When you bring this mesh into Unreal, it will use 0, 0, 0 as your pivot point, as your origin for your mesh. So most stuff will just be centered at 0, 0, 0 with the bottom, the bottom of the mesh sitting at 0 in the z-axis. So you have something that'll come into the engine already resting basically at its pivot point, like that guy. Now the door here, you'll notice, is offset. We intend to animate this door, so the animation we know is based off of the origin of the asset. So the door I've moved over to 0, 0, 0. I've put the edge that I intend for the hinges to go on to be at 0, 0, 0. So this guy will come into the engine offset because its pivot point is sitting here at 0, 0, 0. All right, so we'll go ahead and export that guy. This is our door, 5960. Mesh definitions, materials, mesh normals, mapping, coordinates, vertex colors. We're all good to go. All right. Now we're going to close up 3D Studio and head back into Unreal and bring these meshes in. All right, back over here in Unreal. We are looking at the export directory for 3D Studio. We see our door and our door frame. And we'll go ahead and drag these in, same way we did the textures. And you can do these more than one at once. I'm doing them one at a time because this is a tutorial and I want people to see things multiple times. But you can grab a dozen assets, drag them all in at once, and then set up the package name and grouping once, hit OK to all, and you'll burn through 12 assets or however many you've chosen to drag in. So this group is going to be mesh or meshes or whatever you want. I just know I want to keep the mesh separate. And it's already got a name. There's no options I really care about here, or not yet anyways. Go ahead and hit OK. All right. Now let's bring the door in. Mesh. Okay. All right. We know the package needs to be saved because there's that asterisk. All right. Now we're not quite ready to bring these objects into the scene yet. We have a few things we want to set up on them. First off, we want to set up their default material. So you'll double click on the object. It'll pop up the object in a viewer here. And from here you can see things like show collision and the maximum bounds for the object. So you can see its UVs. What we care about right now though is slapping our newly created material, our grid texture on this guy as its base material. So we need to create a new material for that grid, and we're going to call it grid sample INDD 5960. This is our material mat. All right, same as last time. We will grab the texture from here, drag it in, hook it up, cheat with the specular using the red channel. All right, now this material will not work as it stands on mobile, so we're going to click this box to get the materials, the properties, and we're going to auto flatten to mobile. And then we'll close it up. It's going to ask, are you sure you want to keep these changes? Yes, keep them. All right, so now we have a grid material that we're happy with. So from here, we will go to, now this is horribly buried within the engine and I don't understand why. But when you open a mesh, you get all the properties on the right hand side. Normally this will, LOD info will be automatically expanded. But in case it's not, where you want to assign this material is hiding underneath LOD info. Why is it hiding there? Nobody knows. So LOD info, and then it's basically going to list the materials that are assigned to the object. The number of materials that were assigned in 3D Studio or Maya. It uses those materials as a way to split the object into different materials. So you'll see a list of them for something that has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 materials on it. In this case, all of our assets really only have 1. So you'll see 0, and then elements, and then 0 again. And then way down here, you finally have this material name. And that's what we're after here. Okay, so we'll select material here. It's waiting for something to be dropped in there. We've got grid sample highlighted over here, the material for it. I'm going to hit the arrow, drop it on. So it's now going to use this as the base material. And you can see my wretched UV work here. I didn't really actually UV anything. I hit auto UV and then walked away to finish the tutorial. Okay, so the other features or the other settings we want to use in here, we are going to enable per poly collision. I want to leave that for right now because, again, we're not, for this series of tutorials, we're not worrying about proper collision creation. That'll be another tutorial another time. We want to toggle these off. Use simple box collision. We did not provide simple box collision. We didn't provide a collision mesh. So we want this to use the actual artwork. And we want to collide against this mesh and not our alternate collision mesh. So we toggle those off. And these are for different types of collision that are in the game. Simple box collision is what we're using for the, or this line is basically the collision for the player against the world, and this is for line trace weaponry, determining whether it collides with the world or not. So to keep a weapon very, very accurate, but your collision very, very simple, you'll frequently toggle this off. Okay, and then rigid body collision, where this is for physics assets. You're saying just use the art, don't use an alternate collision method for physics. All right, that's everything for this guy. Now we want to set up our door the same way. So hop down here to material, assign the grid material, make sure enable per poly collision is toggled on, toggle off our use simple collision. Actually, for this tutorial, we'll go ahead and leave it like that. We'll dive into methods for collision another time, but for right now, all we care about is getting these assets into the engine. I'm going to go ahead and save the package with them in there. Now, if you do not have if you don't have access to 3D Studio or Maya or something that allows you to go through this part of the tutorial, don't worry about it. The door and door frame will be in the INDD 5960 sample package. You can skip this part of the tutorial and just pull the door in that I've already set up from this package, from the sample package. All right, so at this point we now have meshes and textures of our own ready to be used. Let's see which direction we want to go here. I'm going to go ahead and just move our player start to a somewhat more central location and then make it face into the map instead of out. There we go. Move our light over as well so we can see what we're doing. Okay, now let's add our door to the scene. All right, so there it is, placed on our box with the pivot there at the bottom, like I said. All right, go ahead and add our door. Get those lined up together. Again, the pivot is at the corner where I wanted it. Looks like one of these two are slightly offset. Oh well, I can fix that later. So there we go. Now, it's all fine and great, but that door and door frame aren't doing anything. So let's go ahead and make it a proper door and talk a little bit about prefabs, which is a method for grouping lots of objects together that allow you to create a part of your game that is artwork that also has a script attached to it, potentially an animation and a light or lots of different things. Bundle it all up into one asset called a prefab, and then add it to your world a whole bunch of different times. And this is going to be the last part of the tutorial and what we've really been building towards. and that's creating this prefab. So you can build one gameplay component and deploy it many times without having to re-script something over and over and over again. It's also a way for you to deploy something many, many times to the game and be able to debug it once and have it solved on all the different instances of this prefab. So let's get going here. Create a little simple script that's going to tell our door that when somebody hits the E key, when somebody activates it, it is going to swing open. This is not heavy scripting. There's no logic involved. It's very simple, straightforward stuff. Oh, before I go any further though, wait, the door is not going to move unless it is converted to a mover. So convert static mesh to mover. There we go. There we go. It's now dynamically lit and drawing a dynamic shadow. Now we need to tell the mover when it is, we need something in the world that understands when somebody has activated the door. And we can't just use the door for that. So we will add a trigger that's also going to be part of this prefab. So add actor trigger. All right. So this trigger is going to be the area that somebody can use to activate the door. So we'll put that in the center. And since the character's pretty tall here, let's say our height for the cylinder. Oh, I just hit F4, pulled up the options. The collision height for the cylinder, I'm going to change to 128. Collision radius of 40 is fine. And this trigger, with the trigger selected, I'm going to go into Kismet, right click, new event using trigger 0, used. We're going to use the use key, which is E, to activate this trigger. So trigger used. When this trigger is used, we want the door to swing open. So select the door, new matinee, and we are not going to do anything fancy this time in here. I'm going to open up the matinee, create a new empty group, call it door, and then create a movement track. Right click that group called door. You get this list, and then go to add new movement track. All right, so we've already got a keyframe in its start position. I want this door to take about 3 seconds to fully open. So I'm going to drag the end key for this animation to roughly 3 seconds. And I'm going to take my bar here, slide it all the way to the end, and add a keyframe at the end by clicking up here to the top left. So now we have a key at the end. It's already highlighted, so it's just wondering what the new position is. I'm going to switch to rotation and swing this door all the way out to 90. There we go. Hit stop so that I can now hit play and watch the door animation. The door animation is automatically using a ease in and an ease out, meaning that the curve, instead of being linear and keeping the exact same speed all the way through the curve, it is now changing velocity over time. Starts slow, gets faster, and then gets slower again and eases into a stop. And this is represented through a curve. If we look in the properties and then turn translation off, turn rotation on, and then toggle the curve on with this bit right here and frame it up in the scene, you can see it's a nice gentle curve instead of linear. And that's what gives our door that nice slow swing open, gets faster, and then eases to a stop. Now this animation, we'll just play it backwards for the door closing. So at this point, we know that when somebody walks up to the trigger and hits E, we want to play this animation. Now, We want this door to be easily opened. So for right now, we're going to toggle off aim to interact. Just turn that off. It makes it much easier for us to test this interaction. And let's see. Is there anything else we should worry about? Max trigger count, of course, 0. Don't want to forget that again. Now, this is going to start the animation from the beginning when you hit the E key and play all the way through. If it's already opened all the way, you'll hit the E key and nothing will happen. The door will stay open forever. In this case, we want the door to go ahead and close after a few seconds. So that's easily handled with a delay. So new action, miscellaneous, delay. So when the animation is completed, when the playhead has made it all the way to 3 seconds, we are going to go to this delay, and we'll make that delay last for, say, another 3 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. And when that is done, I want you to play the animation in reverse, so the door will close. And the next time somebody walks up and hits E, the animation will pick up from whatever key it's at, from whatever frame it's at, and then start playing forward again. So that's the extent of the scripting we're going to do here. At this point, though, we do want to go ahead and try out this door. So I'm just right-click anywhere, play from here. All right, so I'll have to rebuild lights to get our floor back, but the door is dynamic. That's why it's getting light. And all I care about right now is walking up to this door and hitting the E key and watching that animation play. All right, so we know that works. Let's go ahead and build our lights so we can actually see what it looks like all together. So as usual, we got a couple errors that we're not really concerned about right now. All we actually care about is seeing if this door works. There we go. Looks like it's working. Yeah. All right, what happens if I hit it multiple times? Well, looks like it just continues to swing open. Yep, it works the way I intended it to. It's good stuff. All right, we're almost done with this tutorial. Now, the last, but one of the most important things we need to cover here is prefabs. So I have this door, and I know that for my game design, I'm going to use this door many different times within the world. And I don't want to set up a script for it every time. And let's make it even worse. Let's say it's an exit door. So this door always has a light that's associated with it as well. So I'm just adding this light so we have one more thing to build into the prefab so that you can see how important these are. Since this is an exit door, it's going to be a red light. And since it's always shining on that door, we're going to choose cast dynamic. So that door is always catching light from it. So we're also clicking dynamic here, so it's in the dynamic channel. And then the radius is way more than we need. Go up to point light component and dial this back into something that makes more sense. There we go. Get a little bit of spill on the ground. And take this light down a notch so that we can better see our red light. Oh, half it. There we go. So there's our red exit door. Now we're going to use throughout the game tons of times. So to build my prefab, I'm going to select that light, select the trigger, select the door frame, select the door. These are all the things that I need to add this door into the world. Actually, I'll take it even one further. Add actor. We will also add a path node, so that when I'm going back and doing pathing, I already have a path node built into this guy, ready for the ready to be built as I add those doors. So we have a light, path node, door frame, door, and a trigger. This is our prefab. Now that everything's selected that I need, you'll right click it and create prefab. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see create prefab, ... And this is an asset. I mean, you have to save this into a package. Prefab must live somewhere. So we want to save this in our T-Lindsay INDD 5960 package, or whatever your package is called for your project. I'm going to create a group called Prefab. And I want this prefab to be called Exit Door 01, because I might have different versions of it. Hit OK. It's going to find the script and ask you, hey, do you want me to include this in the prefab? Yes, absolutely. That's why we're doing this. Then it's going to ask you, do you want me to replace this collection of assets in your scene with the prefab you just collected? Yes, I do. I want to see how well this works. All right, so there's the prefab. You know it's a prefab because it has this, you can't see it very easily, but this big square. It's a P on it for prefab. And when you select that P, it will grab everything. All right, now the real test. I'm going to go ahead and save my package real quick, so I don't lose that prefab information. The real test is grab that P, so I have the prefab selected, hold down Alt, click and drag. Let's make some doors. All right. It's probably more than enough to test. All right, now we're going to build our scene. All right, scene's done building. All right, let's go ahead and play from here. All right. Hit the E key. Hit the E key. Oh, there we go. Excellent. That's what we want to see. All right. So that's creating a prefab. Prefabs are also editable. You can grab a prefab, and if you have something different you want to do to one of them, something that you don't want to be replicated in the rest, you can break the prefab. You can see your prefab options right here. Convert prefab to normal actors. But even more important than breaking it into normal actors is update prefab from this instance. So what does that mean? That means if my script is busted, or I need to do something different with it, or I realize the door needs to have some change made to it, and I have it in my level 100 times, I can change one of them. Like in this case, I've decided that my exit door, it's makes more sense if it has a green light on it. Update prefab exit door from this instance. Yep, do it. Now everybody has a green light. Now this change has not been saved, of course, until we go back here to the package and hit save. All right. Look at that. Everybody's green. All right, that concludes the tutorial. Be careful with your prefabs. You want to make sure that you save them. And when you don't want to have prefabs in a map that you have not saved the package for, because if something happens to that map, and you will have lost all the prefab work, and the scene will be very unhappy. So I hope this helps you get a lot of game built in a hurry. Thanks for watching.